Now, I'm going to watch the pseudo remake Sorcerer. Look for a video on that coming soon.
Yeah, sorry about that. Better late than never, I guess. Sorcerer was released in 1977 and is directed by William Friedkin. This movie is rather infamous, especially when it comes to supposedly killing Friedkin's career, at least until he made To Live and Die in LA over a decade later. This movie was a massive and embarrassing financial bomb for both Universal and Paramount, who co-released the film. This is a remake of The Wages of Fear, which was a massively popular release in its time. However, Friedkin decided to change the title to Sorcerer, which caused its own set of problems. The director's last film before this one was a bit of a behemoth, or a Beelzebub. The Exorcist was a worldwide phenomenon, and most people expected his next movie to be in the same genre. So when they saw that his new film was called Sorcerer, they kind of expected it to look a lot more like this. The film is also front-loaded with subtitled exposition in Arabic and French. Reportedly, this caused mass walkouts by audiences that believed it was a foreign film. I mean, that sounds rude, but remember, this is an age before foreign films like The Raid or Crouching Tiger. They mostly had French films about smoking in a windowsill. Theaters even began posting notices on the poster that the movie was both not foreign and not a fantasy movie. Yikes, what a ringing endorsement. It also opened less than a month after some little indie film by a nerd. So it's a little easy to say that all the oxygen in the room had been taken up. Plus, audiences weren't really in the mood for a grimy thriller with a downer ending. Audiences were wrong, however, because this is a damn fine movie. The rest of this video is going to be very spoiler heavy, so if you haven't seen this movie, I would recommend doing so. The rest of this video is going to be about asking and answering two important questions. 1. Is this movie better than the original? And 2. Is this William Friedkin's actual masterpiece? But before we answer those questions, let's go over the plot. The opening act introduces us to the 4 men who will be taking on the film's central mission. First up is South American hitman Nilo in the middle of a job. Things go pretty smoothly, though we're given little to no context. Next up is Kasim. Kasim and his friends are enjoying life and having some tea in the middle of Jerusalem, and oh no. Kasim is a Palestinian and a terrorist, which is a surprising protagonist for a major Hollywood film. Even in this day, you wouldn't expect this kind of setup for what amounts to a motivational backstory. Kasim and his cohorts are raided by the authorities and he's forced to flee the country. After him, we cut to Paris, where we meet Victor and his wife. Victor is happily married and doing very well for himself. He's an old money banker, but it turns out he may have some sticky fingers. His firm is in trouble with the government and he faces a scandal and prison unless he comes up with a lot of money in a day. A banker going to prison? Audiences were wrong, this is a fantasy film. Unfortunately for Victor, his attempt to pressure his business partner into begging his own father for it goes poorly. So he does the most reasonable thing he can and fucking books it. Next, we meet the only actor people would recognize. Sheriff Brody from Jaws. Roy Scheider is playing Scanlon. He's a thief and a getaway driver who is currently robbing the mob in a church. And just for fun, they shoot the Don's brother in the leg. Yeah, no, he's boned. While making their getaway, 2 of his fellow jamokes get into a stupid argument, causing him to crash at over 60 kilometers an hour. Psst, Americans, that's just over 37 miles per hour. And since they are in a 70s death trap, everyone is horribly injured or killed. Scanlon hobbles away, and with a friend's help, he flees America with a contract on his head. The next time we see these characters, they are all living rough in a small and desolate South American oil town. Things are bad all over, with the locals causing trouble for the oil company and blowing up one of their wells. The problem is compounded when it's discovered that the company's TNT stash has been sitting too long and has turned into pure nitroglycerin. As anyone who remembers that one episode of Lost knows, that's bad.
All right, we're not going to take any more of this stuff than we need because nitroglycerin is extremely temperamental. So
it's decided that 4 men will be hired to drive 3 boxes each across the Amazon to the well. The danger is high, but the reward is great. After some testing and a little late night throat cutting, we end up with our 4 protagonists in 2 trucks, dubbed Lazarus and Sorcerer. See guys, the title totally makes sense and justifies the name change. Little spoiler alert, but Wages of Fear is a cooler title. Like, it just is. Sorcerer sounds like a Disney film. Like one of those dark 70s Disney films, like Dragon Slayer. Which I used a clip of earlier, so now I can reuse a clip. Here's a clip from Dragon Slayer. The rest of the movie actually plays out very closely to Wages of Fear. The 2 trucks encounter intense problems that require teamwork and tricky maneuvering. The biggest comes when they both must cross a derelict rope bridge over a raging river. This sequence is the movie's centerpiece and an absolute masterwork of filmmaking. Torrential rain pounds the characters as they carefully maneuver the trucks across. They tip and sway dramatically, but never seem to go over. Things get complicated when a tree collides with the truck, pinning both men. This is the best thing about this movie and worth the price of admission alone. At points, it had me holding my breath and wincing from the screen. On a pure filmmaking level, it's absolutely incredible that they were able to achieve this. After the bridge crossing, both trucks are stopped by a fallen tree blocking the road. After some bickering and a few warning shots, they decide on a course of action. Bomb maker Kasim rigs up an improvised timer, and they blow the fallen tree into so many toothpicks. Everything seems well, and the trucks are back on track. Perfect time for a flat tire.
It's 5 minutes before 9 in Paris.
Kasim and Victor are atomized, and the second truck is gone. Stopping at the site of the explosion, Nilo and Scanlon are confronted by a group of rebels. They end up fighting back, but Nilo is mortally wounded in the process. Both he and the truck die only 2 miles from the journey's end. Scanlon, now the only survivor, walks the last crate of TNT to the burning oil well. In an epilogue, we see Scanlon back in town accepting his well-earned money in easy check form. He's about to board a plane out of the hellhole he's found himself in, but decides to stay for one last dance. Unfortunately, a pair of mob hitmen arrive just in time to catch him at the bar. The camera pans out, implying his imminent and tragically fateful death. The end. Or fin, if you still think this is a foreign film. So yeah, it's a pretty nihilistic and brutal ending. Friedkin talked many times about how the movie was about how sometimes destiny is unavoidable no matter what we do. It's a very Terminator 1 theme. The movie does a great job of reinforcing this theme throughout. At the start of the movie, Kasim, Victor, and Scanlon are all running from someone or something, having all made powerful enemies. Nilo may have as well, but it's never really elaborated on. They are all in this situation due to a chance of fate, a car crash, a police raid, or a suicide. In the end, they all meet their deaths due to a twist of timing or happenstance, a flat tire, a chance encounter, and one last dance. It's expertly crafted and gives almost every end a feeling of inevitability. Hi everyone, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for watching this channel. Every bit of support, every subscription, every like, every comment, it keeps me going, and I love hearing from the community. If you do have the means or ability, I would ask you donate at one of the links below. It's been a tough time and we could continue to use your support. But at the very least, just share the channel around if you know someone would like it, and just continue to keep watching. All right, everybody, back to the review. Another thing this movie does incredibly well is sound design. It's not something I talk about often when it comes to my reviews, but Sorcerer is an auditory masterpiece. The movie has a rich ambience that soaks through every scene. Working with mostly the same team that did The Exorcist, they created amazing and deep detail in the rumble of a truck or the noise of a crowded city. Of course, all this sound design is helped by an amazing synth score. This is the kind of synthwave ambience you would expect in a movie from the mid-1980s, not something released in the same year as Star Wars. Well, that's because it's the very first film score from the band that would define synthwave. Tangerine Dream is a German musical group that pioneered electronica in film. While Sorcerer was their first movie, they would go on to score Legend, Firestarter, and Near Dark. They even continue to be active today, contributing a lot to the music for Grand Theft Auto V. Their score makes Sorcerer feel a little newer than it is, which can sometimes be at odds with how it's filmed. Far be it from me to criticize the directing choices of the man who made The Exorcist, but he's dead now, so he can't do anything about it. There are some choices in the filmmaking that feel a little too old-fashioned, even when compared to the director's previous films. This movie features a lot of push zooms and long shot pans. It's a visual choice you most often see in the 1960s. I should probably stop beating around the bush and answer those two important questions. First, is this Friedkin's actual masterpiece? No, that's still The Exorcist. Sorcerer is a damn good movie, but has too many flaws to stack up against what is practically a perfect film. I'm sure I will discuss why The Exorcist is perfect in a future video, but in the end, it's just a better movie. And what about if we measure Sorcerer against its own inspiration, The Wages of Fear? Well, this one's a lot more subjective. There are places where Sorcerer far exceeds the black and white originally. Certainly the opening vignettes are far more engaging and provide a better sense of the desperation each character finds themselves in. However, this comes at a cost. In the original, the lead characters spend far more time with each other than in the remake. In Sorcerer, these four barely spend time talking before the mission. In fact, the only conversation that seems to happen is one right before both characters are evaporated. Their descent into terror-induced madness feels far less effective in the remake as well, and most of that comes down to Nilo. We know the least about him out of the four, given that he is set up as a hired assassin and that the mob put a contract on Scanlan. I thought he was there to fulfill that contract. This isn't the case, and it's never really explained why he's in town or even taking on this mission. So when he starts to go crazy from the fear, there's a big question as to why he's even continuing. In Wages, his role is taken by Joe, who is a much different character. We follow Joe from the moment he arrives in town. He seems rich at first, but we quickly learn that he's lost all his money and is on the run from some business partners. The money is something we know he desperately needs, and every moment reinforces this. It genuinely feels like Joe is slipping into a terror-induced coma, while Nilo seems to instantly go from coolest motherfucker in the room to Bill Paxton in Aliens between scenes. The original also has a few better set pieces. While the bridge sequence in the Friedkin film is a triumph, the log scene is done far less well. In the original, it was a large boulder. The tension in setting up the bomb is dragged out a little longer, and then punctuated by a storm of raining debris that threatens to set off the trucks. The close-up of Joe as he braces himself sells the building fear far better than anything Nilo does. I also prefer the character deaths in Wages versus Sorcerer. In both films, the drivers of the second truck are having a pleasant conversation before they are killed. However, in Wages, their deaths are left off-screen. We get an amazing scene where Mario notices the explosion with a blown-out match and a flash of light. He, and us as an audience, will never know what set the explosives off. We only ever see the aftermath. In Sorcerer, we see every detail, from the blown tire to the mother look on the driver's faces seconds before they die. It's shocking, but feels a little less impactful. The same goes with Nilo, who is shot in an exchange of gunfire. In Wages, Joe is slowly crushed under the truck tire because Mario has no choice but to keep moving forward through a dangerous mud pit. It's gut-wrenching and deeply impactful, especially considering how much more of a character Joe is to Nilo. Sorcerer is an amazing film, but still a flawed one. Its reappraisal over the years has taken it from an embarrassing flop to a lauded masterwork, but I think there may have been some overcorrection happening. While it's great, it's not better than Friedkin's other films like The Exorcist, The French Connection, or even To Live and Die in LA. It's better in places than the original, certainly in its portrayal of women. However, it doesn't fully exceed the tension and character development of that film. The bridge scene is amazing, but it really feels like there's nowhere left to go in tension after that. I still fully recommend this movie, but maybe watch the original first and form your own opinion. Sorcerer gets a 4.5 out of 5. I still really like this movie, and this was genuinely the first time I've seen it. I remember my dad renting it as a kid, but I think I left 10 minutes in because I thought it was a foreign film. But I guess I wasn't the only one. Thank you so much for watching, crew members. Remember, stay safe and be who you are.